bhajajana ranjana Yasodanandana bhajajana ranjana Yamuna tiravanachari Yamuna tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Bibidi Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go Pemanandi Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Garanga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 28, Text 8. Śucau deśe pratiṣṭhāpya. Yeah, number 8. There we go. Śucau deśe pratiṣṭhāpya. Vijitāsana āsanam. Vijitāsana āsanam. Tasmin svasti samāsīna. Tasmin svasti samāsīna. Ṛju-kāyaḥ samabhyaset. Ṛju-kāyaḥ samabhyaset. Śucau deśe pratiṣṭhāpya. Vijitāsana āsanam. Tasmin svasti samāsīna. Ṛju-kāyaḥ samabhyaset. Vaishnavis. śucau, deśe, in a sanctified place. Pratiṣṭhāpya, after placing. Vijitāsana, controlling the sitting postures. Āsanam, a seat. Tasmin, in that place. Svasti, samāsīna, sitting in an easy posture. Ṛju-kāyaḥ, keeping the body erect. Samabhyaset, one should practice. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. After controlling one's mind and sitting postures, one should spread a seat in a secluded place, in a secluded and sanctified place. Sit there in an easy posture, keeping the body erect, and practice breath control. Purport. Sitting in an easy posture is called svasti samāsīna. It is recommended in the yoga scripture that one should put the soles of the feet between the two thighs and ankles and sit straight. That posture will help one to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This very process is also recommended in the Bhagavad-gītā 6th chapter. It is further suggested that one sit in a secluded, sanctified spot. The sheet should consist of deerskin and kuśa grass, topped with cotton. Om Ganatamarandasya Jalanjana Shalakaya Chakshuranoitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamyena Bhutale Swayamupakaramayam Dharati Swaparantikam. So as I was leaving the house this morning, leaving the apartment to come here for the second part of the program, my wife said to me, she said, only talk about what you actually practice. Don't be a hypocrite. You know, just, you're giving the class, you got to talk. So I took that instruction to heart, and I decided, I'm sitting in svasti, samāsīna right now. It's not very difficult. That's why it's called the easy posture. And I'm trying to sit erect. It's even harder. It's such a noise. No, practicing breath control there. But yeah, this is, Prabhupada talks about it in the purport. He says that this posture, this particular sitting position, will help one to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he mentions that it's also there in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā. What he does mention is also mentioned in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Krishna instructs Uddhava in the yoga system. So it works. It actually works. If you try it, you'll find it works. And you feel more grounded, less distracted, and we shouldn't be shocked by that. There's a reason why it works, because the human body is designed for self-realization. It's designed for that purpose. And when you learn how to use it properly, it works. You could feel it, just like a car. A car is designed to transport you from A to B. So if you know that's the purpose of the car, and you know how to use the car, it's going to do it. It's going to, you're going to go any place you want with that car. If you think the car is just a big trash can with 2 doors and windows, or doors and windows, then you're going to miss the whole thing. It's a disaster. Or if you think you have a laptop computer, one of those ones that goes like that, and if you think it can be used to manage a business, a nation, with these, especially these days, the computers are so advanced. But if you think, I guess I could just use that to crack walnuts, and you stick a walnut in there, and you try to crack it, well, you're not going to crack the walnut, but you're going to crack the computer. You're going to wreck the computer. So the human body's like that. It's meant for self-realization. And when we know how to use it for self-realization, we're getting an instruction here. This is one aspect of it. It really works like amazing, The Vedic culture is scientific. Scientific in the sense that it works, Like when you get up and you take a cold shower in the morning, if not freezing, but just it's invigorating. It's just another reflection. I remember a couple days ago we were in the prasadam room, and they were we do this thing now. Everybody lines up and we sit at tables. But in India, the way they do it is everybody sits in rows, and the servers come out and they serve you like that. And, I thought, well, it doesn't make a difference. But then as I was, taking prasadam the other morning, because Prabhupada disciples go up to the front. So I went up to the front and I got my prasadam and I went to sit down at the table and I thought, I can't sit here. Everybody's standing there waiting, and I'm supposed to sit down and eat in front. Just didn't feel right. And I just reflected, in the Vedic culture it doesn't work like that. Everybody sits in the rows. And every aspect, that's maybe not the greatest example, but every aspect of the Vedic culture, it's scientific, it works. And this is part of it. As far as this, this yoga, sitting on the seat goes, it definitely works. All these things work. But as we pointed out, they're a means to an end. They're not an end in themselves. But they are a means to an end. And they do work. Prabhupada, and here it says, he's referring us to the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā. Oh yeah, I just want to say a little bit more about just, how to put the whole in perspective where this yoga, this type of yoga fits in. It's definitely genuine. Prabhupada on different occasions said, he was talking about the yogis who come out of the Himalayas for the Kumbh Mela. And on 3 or 4 different occasions he made different comments, but he said that some of these yogis are 200, 300, 400. On one occasion, he actually said up to 700 years old. So he acknowledged that these are for real people. I mean, they can extend their life 600 years, or 100 years, like that. In another lecture Prabhupada gave, he talked about one Swami, his name was Trilunga Swami, who he said lived about 150 years ago in Benares, which is about 200 years ago now. And he said that he was walking around naked. So this was during the British Raj, And so they locked him up. They said, no, you can't walk around naked. So they put him in jail. And then he just, somehow or another, shortly thereafter, they saw him out on the street again. So they locked him up again. And then some little bit of time passed and he was out on the street again. And then a third time, they locked him up. And there was so then I just forget, let this guy do whatever he wants, But Prabhupada, he acknowledged that this man had some mystic power. He was able to, he had anima siddhi. He was able to, make himself really, really small and escape from the prison. And he did it 3 times, so Prabhupada acknowledged. So it's for real. There's so many, examples throughout the Bhagavatam of, the mystic powers and. But it's to put it once again in proper perspective, it's not this the type of yoga that Lord Kapila is describing here. It's not for this age. One thing is it takes a really long time to do it, to perfect it properly. Prabhupada would say that 100,000 people in the Satya, it's meant for the Satya Yuga. It's the process for self-realization for Satya Yuga. People in the Satya Yuga live for 100,000 years. So and he would say, therefore, they could have, they had like 10,000 years or 60,000 years to set aside for meditation. So they could successfully execute this yoga system. That's one point. And another point is that sometimes he would say some rare man can, maybe become somewhat successful. But it's also mentioned, was it mentioned here in this purport? It's not mentioned here, but it's mentioned in the purport Prabhupada refers to in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, that in order to do this type of yoga, you have to go to a sacred place, a secluded place, and you have to be completely free from sex life. That's another point. See, so we don't have the lifespan, and we don't have access to the sacred place or the secluded place, and we don't understand what's involved. You have to become free from material desires, free from sex life, in order to properly execute the Ashtanga or Dhyana yoga system, in order to actually become self-realized by that system. Okay? So those are some things. I'm going to read that purport very quickly, because this is for the first place, at least for many of us, where Prabhupada sets the record straight and he puts the whole thing in proper perspective. This is the purport to 6.11 in the Bhagavad-gītā. It says, Prabhupada says, sacred place refers to places of pilgrimage. In India, yogis, the transcendentalists or the devotees, all leave home and reside in sacred places such as Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Rishikesh, Hardwar, and in solitude practice yoga, where the sacred rivers like the Yamuna and the Ganges flow. But often this is not possible, especially for Westerners. The so-called yoga societies in big cities may be successful in earning material benefit, but they are not at all suitable for actual practice of yoga. So they might get, help people become a bit more healthy. We don't argue that point. But they're not meant for the actual practice of yoga. This is Prabhupada says, one who is not self-controlled and whose mind is not undisturbed cannot practice meditation. Therefore, the Brihad Naradiya Purana, it is said that in Kali Yuga, the present Yuga, or age, when people in general are short-lived, slow in spiritualization, and always disturbed by various anxieties, the best means of spiritual realization is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And he quotes that famous verse, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Katiranyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. There's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. So, from that, what we conclude is that, yeah, it's actually good. Prabhupada's saying in the purport, this sitting in this posture will help one concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we could sit in this posture, but then when you do, you should make use of it to concentrate your mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And for us, the way to concentrate our minds on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as we just heard, is to chant the Mahamantra. Chanting the Mahamantra. That's the most effective way for us to concentrate our mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, so there's chanting the Mahamantra and there's chanting the Mahamantra. In other words, it's really very important with what attitude, with what understanding we going to try to chant the Mahamantra. Every morning we chant. It's really a good idea to be aware, to be conscious of the goal of our goal of chanting the Mahamantra, which we say every morning. I actually say it. I quote that verse. Bahu janma kari adi shravana kirtana tabhutana pai Krishna pari prabodhana. If one is infested with the 10 offenses, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not obtain the ultimate goal of his chant, the love of Godhead, which is the ultimate goal of the chanting. So that's the ultimate goal of the chanting is to develop love of Godhead. And it's really very helpful to keep that in mind. And I want to read a paragraph from this book called Alien Identities, which was written by Bhrgupati Prabhu, probably 30 years ago now, which I read just the other day. I was trying to do some research about Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, and Shyamananda Goswami, and I remembered that he kind of gave some stories about them in his book here. But anyway, in the course of doing that research, I came upon this paragraph which really got me thinking. He says, Narottam Das Thakur, who lived in India in the 16th, Narottam Das Thakur would regularly meditate on living in the spiritual world in his siddha deha, or perfected spiritual form. There he would perform the service of boiling milk for Krishna, and he would actually experience this as real in all respects. So much so that he actually burned his hands while he was doing it once. And here it comes. In Vaishnava philosophy, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and he lives in the transcendental realm in an eternal personal form. In that realm, many simple acts of service serve as media for the exchange of intense love between Krishna and his devotees. So when I read that, it just kind of like really hit home. I thought, yeah, that's it. That's what it's all about. The whole idea is to come to this point of experiencing intense love for Krishna. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to develop intense love for Krishna. And what we're doing, such as chanting and other things, waving the chamra or whatever, actually the service of Srinivasacharya, he was meditating, and he was waving a chamra, and he was making a garland in the meditation. And in his meditation, he gave that garland to Lord Chaitanya, and then when he came out of his meditation, that garland, he was wearing that garland. Lord Chaitanya gave the garland back to him, and he was wearing it, and it said that it had an incredible fragrance, unlike anything he'd ever experienced. So the point is that these simple activities, chanting being primary, the most important of all they're meant for this purpose. They're meant to serve as media to enable us to enter into this exchange of intense, ecstatic love, intense love between Krishna and ourselves. That's the purpose of the chant. That's the purpose of everything we're doing. See? And you can forget that. It's easy to forget it. Just like, I'll give you an example. If somebody were to come in now, and somebody who's average intelligence, but not necessarily very charitably disposed to understanding other cultures, okay? And they came in, during the artik or something, and they saw me, going like this with the fan, or going, and they might think that, looking at me, they think, poor guy, he's really being misled. What does he think he's doing? What possible value could that have? He's standing there waving a fan at a statue. Oh my God, these people are so out there, But, we know different. We know different. These simple acts, these are simple acts. Doing an artik, ringing a bell when you're doing an offering, shouting to Krishna, making a garland, But they're meant for this purpose. They're meant to help us develop this ecstatic or intense love for Krishna. And the activities themselves are pregnant with spiritual potency. See, it's not like we just do these things and imagine that, okay, Krishna, I really love you. No, it's like, well, that's okay too, but the acts themselves, the chanting is, Nama Chintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. How's it go? Punashuna Nityamukta Binatvam Namanamino. The holy name is non-different from Krishna, you see? So these are very simple things. Chanting is very simple. The puja is very simple. They're very simple acts, as mentioned here. These simple acts, they serve as a media, an impetus for exchanging intense love between Krishna and his devotees. So that's a really important thing to remember, that these are transcendental spiritual activities. They're potent. They're pregnant with spiritual potencies. And if we perform them with the right attitude, the attitude of, praying, to Krishna, please allow me to, awaken my love for you, because, it's there. I mean, that's Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sabhu Kabenaya Shravanade Sudachite Koda Udaya. That pure love for Krishna is there in the heart of every living entity, not even like, non-human species. It's part and parcel of the soul. But when you come to the human form of life, especially when you come to, the point where you're actually a practicing devotee, we're this close. We're this close. We're in the human body. We're in the Krishna consciousness movement. We've come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master who's, experiencing this. I mean, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, what's the Chaitanya Charitamrita? The Chaitanya Charitamrita is just a description of Lord Chaitanya's intense love for Krishna. The whole thing, it's just describing Lord Chaitanya's intense, ecstatic love for Krishna. That's the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada, why was Prabhupada so successful? Why was Prabhupada so attractive? Because Prabhupada had intense, ecstatic love for Krishna. And people could sense that. Yeah, the message was great. The message made sense, and so many other things. But Prabhupada, he was an embodiment. He was a personification of intense, ecstatic love for Krishna. And when people were around him, they could sense that. There's so many, you listen to these Prabhupada memories, and there's so many devotees who say something to that effect, that just being around Prabhupada, they felt like, this is not no ordinary person here. There's something special about this man, They could sense that. And so, yeah, that's we have to bear that in mind, that this is all meant for that purpose. It's meant, these are training camps. The temples are actually training camps to help souls come to this point of experiencing intense ecstatic love for Krishna. And so once again, Lord Chaitanya had it, his immediate followers had it, the 6 Goswamis said about them, so Radha Kunda Tate Kalindi Tanaya Tire. Anyway, just without quoting the Sanskrit, it talks about how they were, running around in Vrindavan chanting, "Oh, Queen of Vrindavan, Radharani, oh Lalita, where are you all? Oh Krishna, where are you all now? Are you just on the hill of Govardhan? Are you under the trees or the banks of the Yamuna? Where are you?" They were in ecstatic love for Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, the 6 Goswamis, Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, down. well, actually, most all the acharyas in our disciplic succession, they were living examples of people who had intense ecstatic love for Krishna. And the thing is this, that's what they want us to do. They want us to come to that level. And I'm going to prove it, read something that Prabhupada said, which kind of, I think, indicates that. Whoops. This book's falling apart. Okay, so I did a search on Vanipedia under one moon, and I found some interesting statements, because, Prabhupada was fond of, he quoted this verse, Ekas Chandras, I can't remember the Sanskrit, but what is the use of so many twinkling stars in the sky? If there's one moon, then that one moon can illuminate the whole night. So these are a couple of statements Prabhupada made. Said, if I create one moon, that is sufficient. I don't want many stars. My Guru Maharaj used to say like that. That was my Guru Maharaj's principle, and that is my principle. So Prabhupada wanted a moon. Moon means luminary. Luminary. Luminary is a person who enlightens human society. That's what Prabhupada wanted. That's what this movement's all about. This is a movement to create luminaries, and I'll read on; it'll become obvious. It says, "Fortunately, by Krishna." This is another time that Prabhupada said this. By Krishna's grace, many moonlight boys and girls have come to me. Many moons. I was thinking of having only one moon, but he says, but I am hopeful that there are many moons, and in the future they'll be doing very nice. He says, I do not have many followers, but I do have a select few. Because they are select, they will bring about a revolution in this world. One moon is sufficient to dissipate the darkness. If one disciple is enlivened with Krishna consciousness, he can work as the moon. Otherwise, so many foolish followers, what they'll do, just like stars. If there's one moon, that is sufficient. What is the use of millions of stars twinkling? So that is our propaganda. If one man can understand what is Krishna philosophy, then my preaching is successful. If you do not, and then I'll read a final one and I'll just. What is the value of millions of stars? But one moon can dissipate the whole darkness of the night. Similarly, at least those who have taken to Krishna consciousness, each of you become a moon and enlighten the world. So that was Prabhupada's desire, that we become like moons, luminaries in human society. And it's obvious you don't have to be a rocket scientist or do a lot of research to see that that's exactly what's needed in the world today. We need some people who really can, who are luminaries, who actually can understand what's what, because, people are really bewildered. So this is like a luminary training camp. The temples are actually meant to be that, luminary training camps. And we can understand that's what Prabhupada wanted, and it's very important, so we should all try that ourselves. Now, but here's the point. If you're feeling, you might be feeling, I'm too far gone. I'm too covered. I'm too old. I'm too, can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's just, no. Okay. If you might be feeling like that, but then, so we should try to help somebody who we could see has the potential to become a luminary. You see? So I might be feeling I'm too far gone. I'm too conditioned. I'm too covered over. Okay, but here's Shri Chura Gopinath, nice young brahmachari, showing, signs of having potential of becoming a, so we should help him, In basketball, they have this expression, feed the hot hand. You got to be like that. So either one of those two positions is acceptable. We should try, ideally, we should try to become luminaries ourselves, individually, and we should simultaneously try to help other devotees become luminaries. There's this expression, a rising tide carries all boats. When the tide goes up, all the boats rise. Not just your boat, all the boats rise. So, we try to become a luminary ourselves and try to help other devotees become a luminary. If we can't, if we're feeling like I just don't have what it takes to do that, try to help other devotees become a luminary. What's not acceptable, I would think, what's not acceptable is to just feel like, okay, well, I can't do it, and I'll just watch, and good luck to everybody. Hope somebody can become a luminary. No. It's not enough. You've got to be more involved in that. And definitely what we don't want to be is in the position of trying to undermine anybody else's attempt to become luminary. Prabhupada once said about his god brothers, He said, if by passing air somebody be benefited, they'll hold it in. He wasn't too impressed by some of the attitude of some of his God brothers, you know. He didn't like that. So, yeah, it's a very important point. Oh yeah, and one last thing was that Savas was talking about the importance of occupational duty, you know, right? He made a lot of emphasis on that. And it reminded me of, you know, where did I hear that? We're occupational. And it reminded me of when I used to distribute books at Camp Pendleton, down in Oceanside. Camp Pendleton's right there. So I used to go down there on the weekends because the new recruits would get off and they'd come and get their dry cleaning done, you know, do their shopping, go to a movie, whatever they would do. They just, you know, they were off the base, so they'd come in. They were very good candidates for taking books. They were, you might not think so, but they were very simple, innocent guys, you know, and they would take books and give nice donations. So I remember one of my lines was, I'd always ask them, so what's your MOS? You know, and that's an abbreviation for Military Occupational Specialty. So that was like, you know, you talk to the guys, hey man, how's it going? What's your MOS? And he's, whatever, you know, 61 Bravo or whatever it was. But thing is this, so before you go to the MOS school, before you get trained up in your MOS, you go to basic training. Basic training, boot camp is what they call it. And one of the things they teach you in basic training, one of the most important things they teach you in basic training is you got to work like a unit. You got to work like a team. Because if you know, when the group gets out there, if they don't work cooperatively, if they don't work like a team, they all get killed, you see. So they really emphasize that a lot, that you got to work like a team. So that's an important part of the basic training. So once again, the analogy is this is like, you know, a luminary training camp, but we're all in this together. We're all in this together. We have to work as a team, you know. We have to work as a team, cooperate, and try to help each other because, you know, like the spiritual life you save may be your own. The temple you save may be your own. I remember my mother used to always say to me, I didn't understand it, but she always used to say to me, Jeffrey, don't cut your nose to spite your face. And I always used, and you know, she would say it over and over and over again. Her mother used to say it, you know, and she said it to me, and I never understood it until about a couple of years ago when I actually stopped and thought about it. What does that mean anyway? Don't cut your nose to spite your face. And I thought about it, and what I've come up with is this, that imagine I get up in the morning and I look at myself in the mirror, and I'm seeing like, oh my God, I look horrible, which happens a lot. And I'm thinking like, oh, I'm going to get revenge on my face for looking so bad. I'm going to cut my nose. So, okay, I could do that. But if I cut my nose to get revenge on my face, who's getting hurt? Me. I'm hurting myself, you see? So if I spite my face, if I get revenge on my face, I hurt me, you see? So in the same way, we might be thinking, I'm not happy with the temple, you know, this you know, policy or that, whatever. I'm going to get my revenge by distancing myself, you know, distance myself from the temple. I won't participate as much. I won't, well, you know, I'm going to get my revenge on the temple like that. But the thing is this, but if we hurt the temple, we're all in this together, like it or not. We're stuck with each other, you know? So if you kind of like participate less, it hurts the temple, but by doing that, you hurt yourself. You're part of a less fired up community. See? So we shouldn't, you know, be careful, on guard against that mentality. Don't cut our nose to spite our face, you know. We're all in this together. We should cooperate and really try to help each other become luminaries. That's our real goal. That's what Prabhupada wanted. He said it. I want my disciples to become luminaries, and if they are able to do that, actually Prabhupada said, and I'll conclude with this, that if some percentage, and then he qualified, he said, if 1%, he used to say more than once, he said, if 1% of the population becomes Krishna conscious, then the entire face of the world will change. So that was, you know, a message that we got from Prabhupada. So I'll stop there, 8:26. Anybody have any question? Or, yeah, Rabindranath Prabhu.
Yes, we understand that different processes of yoga, like Ashtanga yoga, is too difficult in this age to perform. But then why did Srila Vyasadeva even mention it in Vedic literature, even in Śrīmad Bhagavatam, in such detail?
Why did he mention the process?
Yeah, he mentioned, you sit like this, you do this, you control this light there, you have a seat like this. Why even
Yeah,
mention?
it's part of a genuine yoga system. It's not meant for this age, but the Bhagavatam is, dealing with things, ages and things that happen way beyond just this current age we're living in. And by the way, okay, it's mentioned here, but it doesn't end there. As I said, it's a means to an end. Lord Kapila, we're hearing this from Lord Kapila right now, but if you just stay tuned to this station for the next exciting episode of, Lord Kapila instructs Devahuti, you're going to hear about what happens after that. Once you get, do that, he doesn't say just go meditate on the void. It, talks about how to meditate on the pastimes of Krishna and like that. So it's part of a system, and it's presented in its proper perspective here in the Śrīmad Bhagavatam. It goes on to, actually, what is the title of this chapter is Kapila's instruction on devotional service. And actually, in the very first in the purport to the first verse of this chapter that we're dealing with now, Kapila's instructions on devotional service, Prabhupada says, I think I should be able to find it pretty quickly. Here it goes. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Here it comes. Astanga yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. So that's how it's totally bona fide. It's part of the Vaishnava practice. The ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. Is that a good answer?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything they want to ask or question or comment? Yeah.
Those that work in the kitchen, they do service in the kitchen, they work as a team. Also, one other benefit is coming out for Harinam Sankirtan, working as a team. Because that gets us practice for Rath Yatra, chanting enthusiastic, also coming to the temple, for sure, both. Chanting in the temple, dancing in the temple, and coming out there too. There are many opportunities to work as a team, and we should take advantage of them. That's a good idea. I was also meditating on what Ravindranath Prabhu said. Bhagavatam gives a lot of explanation about the ideal. Like Prahlad Maharaj says that economic development is a useless waste of time, should not be engaged in. That's the ideal, if you're fully self-realized, But for most of us who are in between or trying to develop spiritual life, that's if you could do that, that's ideal. But if you can't, the message is for us to keep it to the minimum, and so that to save time for spiritual life. Not that we completely don't engage in any economic activity. If you have a family, you have a responsibility to take care of them. But the message is, if it's a complete waste of time, then keep it to a minimum and save time for spiritual life. And then hopefully one day completely give it up and dedicate yourself fully to devotional service.
Thank you. I appreciate your comment. Anybody else, anything? One last comment, Bhakti-avatar Prabhu, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Bhrgupati, for another very powerful class. Just to support what you said about the 1% principle, when I was in the TM movement before I joined Krishna consciousness, they did some studies on, I think it was 16 cities, 8 control cities and 8 cities where there were people practicing the Transcendental Meditation program. And in the control cities, there was a 7 to 8% increase in the crime rate, sickness rate, and accident rate, whereas in the cities where there were people practicing 1% of the population practicing the TM technique, there was a similar 7 to 8% drop in the sickness rate, accident rate, and crime rate. So that was just to support what you were saying about the 1% principle.
Okay, thank you very much. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.